Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going through my running back start sits. So this is where I break down every single week 11 matchup. The timestamps are going to be down below in the comment section. So if you guys just want to jump around to your specific RBs, that is totally fine. All I ask is that if you guys are enjoying the content, do me a huge favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. You can ask me any fantasy questions down below in the comment section, and I'll be responding to every single person. But let's get into the Thursday night matchup where we have the Patriots traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Patriots coming off of a great win, Falcons coming off of a totally embarrassing performance. And this Patriots backfield is kind of tough to evaluate here. So Damian Harris misses week 10 with a concussion. It kind of seemed like he was close to clearing, so I do think there's, at least some chance that he is good to go on Thursday. The question is, if Damian Harris plays, is he just going to regain, the majority of the carries that he had throughout the season? Because Ramondre Stevenson looked great in week 10. So I'm going to put it like this. If Damian Harris is healthy, I don't really trust Harris, Stevenson, or Bolden. However, if Damian Harris is still out with that concussion, then I think Ramondre Stevenson is a smash play in your lineups. It's just that if Harrison is healthy, I think it just may turn into a full-on committee, and Harris just has no receiving upside. So if he's not getting, 13 plus carries, it's going to be tough for him to produce. And then on the other side, there's also some uncertainty here with the Falcons. Cordero Patterson suffered an ankle injury in week 10. It seems like they're not super optimistic that he's going to be able to go on Thursday night. So obviously if Patterson's out, Mike Davis, what do you do with him? He's been pretty terrible. I still don't even think he's a solid start. Even if Patterson doesn't play, I think he's kind of like a desperate flex. At this point, I'm going to guess Wayne Gallman is going to see some work as well. So really, if Cordero Patterson is not in there, I'd be just trying to avoid this Falcons backfield. Now let's move on to Sunday, where we have the Saints taking on the Eagles. For the Saints, this one's pretty clear. If Alvin Kamara is back and healthy, Kamara is going to be the start. If he's out once again, then I think you just slot in Mark Ingram, who I would be totally comfortable with in my lineup. For the Eagles, it looks like there's a decent chance that Miles Sanders will make his return this week. And if he does, I'm actually just going to be sitting all of these running backs, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and Jordan Howard. I'm going to guess they're going to ease Sanders back, into the offense at least a little bit. It's already been a running back by committee here. Sanders did not have a great start to the season. So honestly, I'd just be fading all three of these RBs. Then we've got a divisional game between the Dolphins and the Jets, and I'm going to be rolling with Myles Gaskin. His production hasn't been great as of late, but his touches have been really solid. This is no longer a full-on committee with Malcolm Brown and Salvon Ahmed. Malcolm Brown is injured. Ahmed has kind of been phased out of the offense, and so Gaskin has not been efficient, but the touches have been there. So this is probably the week for him to break out against this Jets team. And then on the other side with the Jets, I think Michael Carter is a solid start. He continues to just break away as the RB1 of this backfield, and also his receiving work has been really solid, and that leads me to be sitting Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman. In this next matchup, it's the Washington football team taking on the Carolina Panthers, and I did have some hesitancy, about Antonio Gibson going into their matchup against the Bucs on Sunday. Antonio Gibson has been dealing with some injuries and overall just has not played well. And he honestly didn't run the ball super well on the ground. He was terribly inefficient, but they were feeding him the ball. I believe he had 24 carries, got into the end zone twice. This is another matchup where it's not super solid, but I still think he's a lock in your lineup. If they're going to be feeding him, it seems like he's healthy. There was no carry restriction. Then you're just going to be rolling with him in your lineup. On the other side, you just can't trust J.D. McKissic on a weekly basis. And then for the Panthers, Christian McCaffrey locked in. He is back. He had a really nice game here in week 10, and it could have been even bigger. He got tackled twice at the 1 yard line, and then again at the 5 yard line. I think I mentioned, maybe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, that Christian McCaffrey is my rest of season RB1. I'm going to shift that just a little bit. Right now, he's my RB2 rest of season, so not a huge drop off, but I do think the Panthers going out, getting Cam Newton. Newton is going to vulture some of those touchdowns from the goal line, so I would just slot Jonathan Taylor ahead of him, but he is still a high-end RB1 moving forward. Then we have the Colts taking on the Bills. For me, this is pretty clear on both sides. Jonathan Taylor, just mentioned him, RB1 for me, rest of season. For the Bills, I'm just so done with this backfield. You see a solid matchup against the Jets. You thinking, okay, maybe Zach Moss or Devin Singletary can have nice games. Then you see Matt Breida go out there, get into the end zone twice. Full on committee here. Not an easy matchup against the Colts. I'm just going to be fading all three of these running backs. Then we've got the Lions facing off against the Browns. For me, DeAndre Swift locked in start. They were just feeding him on Sunday. I'm pretty sure he had over 30 carries. He had more rushing yards than Jared Goff had passing yards. So Swift, lock in your lineup. Whether or not Jamal Williams is back, it really doesn't matter. Swift is a start no matter what. For the Browns, I would expect Nick Chubb to return from the COVID list. He had to miss on Sunday, so we saw Dearness Johnson fill in for him, perform very well for fantasy purposes, but once Nick Chubb is back, Dearness Johnson is going to be phased out. So Chubb's a start, Johnson is a sit. In this 49ers-Jaguars game, you've got to be riding with Elijah Mitchell. The 49ers have shown us they want to run the ball, and even though Jeff Wilson got some work in this Monday Night Football game against the Rams, Elijah Mitchell is still the clear-cut RB1 on this team. So Mitchell's a start, Jeff Wilson is a sit. For the Jaguars, kind of a similar situation here. James Robinson locked in RB1. Carlos Hyde may get a few touches a game, but it's not even going to come close to James Robinson's numbers. So Hyde is a sit. And then just a really, really gross game at the running back position. The Houston Texans taking on the Tennessee Titans. I'm just not interested in anyone. For the Texans, Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson, doesn't matter. I want them on my bench. Honestly, I don't want them on my bench. I just don't even want to have them rostered. For the Titans, I kind of thought there was some hope for either Adrian Peterson or Jeremy McNichols to be fantasy relevant, but now we've got Donta Foreman in there. So it's Foreman, Peterson, McNichols, all getting touches. None of them are efficient. Really just goes to show how good Derrick Henry really is, but all of those players are going to be sits for me. Then we have a total shift in the next matchup, a divisional game between the Packers and the Vikings. I feel super confident in both of these running backs. So it looks like Aaron Jones is going to be out 1 to 2 weeks. Honestly, I feel like that's the best news we could have gotten, given how serious it looked. So great news for all you Aaron Jones owners. I know I have at least a few shares of him in my leagues, so that is great to hear. But for however long Aaron Jones is out, A.J. Dillon is an RB1 for me, on a week-to-week basis, because they're in a committee, and you can see in a committee with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones still produces at an RB1 level. So now I think Dillon may have an even bigger role than Aaron Jones has seen this season. So he is a locked-in start. And then Dalvin Cook, don't even need to say anything here. He is a start in your lineup. Next game is the Ravens traveling to Soldier Field to take on the Bears. For the Ravens, I think Devonta Freeman is a start if Latavius Murray is out. So if Latavius Murray is still going to be out with that ankle injury, then I'd roll with Freeman. If Murray is back, then Murray, Freeman, and Bell are all going to be on the bench. For the Bears, David Montgomery is a start, came back from his injury, played well, got the majority of the touches. Then the Bears had a bye, so he should be totally ready to go. Khalil Herbert has seen some value this season, but not with David Montgomery back. So Herbert is a sit. Then we've got the Bengals taking on the Raiders. For the Bengals, Joe Mixon has been beasting this season, and he is going to be a start. Josh Jacobs, I don't really love him as a fantasy asset, but he is still a totally startable running back. And then I'm going to be sitting at Kenyon Drake. Drake can see some value as a receiving back, but you just never know what games it's going to come from. Moving on to Cardinals Seahawks. For the Cardinals, James Conner is a locked-in start. With Chase Edmonds out, he is going to be the total workhorse. And then for the Seahawks, I think there's actually a decent chance that Chris Carson does finally come off of IR and suit up in this game. If he does, then I don't trust him or Alex Collins. I feel like they're going to turn this into a full-on committee. And even if Chris Carson doesn't return, I still don't love Alex Collins. He's probably just a desperate flex at best, so just not a lot of confidence there. Then in this Cowboys Chiefs game, for the Cowboys, Zeke locked in start. Tony Pollard, he'll have his games, but just not enough consistency, to kind of judge when both of these running backs can be successful. So Pollard's a sit. For the Chiefs, just like I talked about with Chris Carson, I think there's actually a much better chance that Clyde Edwards-Helaire returns. Apparently, he was decently close to playing in Week 10, so Week 11, I feel like the odds are in favor of him playing. And if he does come back, it really just tanks Darrell Williams' value. But overall, I think both of these players are unstartable, especially in the first week back for CEH. He may gain some of his work back, but I feel like this is going to be a committee and one that you're just going to be frustrated with on a week-to-week basis. Sunday Night Football, Steelers, Chargers, 2 stud running backs, Najee Harris and Austin Eckler, are locks in your lineup. And then for the final game of the week, Giants traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. I'm expecting Saquon Barkley to be good to go for Monday night. If he is good to go, he's a start even against this tough Bucs defense. If they struggle on the ground, he can still get it done in the receiving game. If Saquon Barkley is unable to return from that ankle injury, I'd be fine starting Devontae Booker. For the Buccaneers, Leonard Fournette, lock in your lineup. I mean, Ronald Jones has just been totally phased out of this offense. He would still see a few snaps a game, get a few touches. I believe he had 1 total snap on the day here in Week 10. So Fournette is the guy. And then the other running back there, Giovanni Bernard, dropped at least 2 passes in that matchup. So Fournette's the guy. We saw him used a ton in the receiving game. He's going to be getting almost all the work on the ground and should be a really confident start in Week 11. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you guys enjoyed the content, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Go check out my wide receiver start sits, which I'm going to be posting today as well. And then I'll go through the quarterbacks and the tight ends tomorrow. But thank you guys again, and I'll see you next time.